He woke before the sun. The faint orange glow barely kissed the horizon, and the salty tang of the sea filled his lungs as he stepped onto the creaking wooden dock. For most, this was just another day. Nets to mend, fish to catch, waves to battle. But for him, it was more than labor. It was survival, duty, and somehow, purpose. By day, he was Mateo Cruz, a humble fisherman from a small coastal town in the Philippines. By night, in the hidden corners of his village, he was something else entirely. A voice that could stir hearts, a melody that could summon tears, laughter, and awe in equal measure. Mateo's life had always been tied to the rhythm of the tides. The ocean was his provider, his teacher, and occasionally, his cruel antagonist. There were mornings when the nets returned empty, the waves cruelly relentless, and the sun beat down with an unforgiving heat. And yet, he loved it, the solitude, the early morning quiet, the smell of salt on his skin. But after the day's toil, when the village settled into the soft lull of evening, the magic within him came alive. It began as a whisper. As a boy, Mateo would sing quietly to himself while entangling nets, his voice mingling with the lapping waves. His mother had noticed the rare quality in it, a richness that seemed to resonate not just with the air but with the soul. "Mateo," she would say, her eyes misting, "your voice, it's not just sound. It's something else. Guard it, but never hide it." But life was demanding, and the voice was a luxury he could not afford to indulge during the day. The ocean had to be conquered first. Fish fed his family, singing fed his soul. For years, he performed in secret, his songs flowing through the village's narrow streets as he walked home under the moonlight, unnoticed but unrelenting. He sang for the old grandmother watching from her window, for the children playing barefoot on the dirt roads, for the fishermen returning from their hauls, weary but smiling. Everything changed the day a small talent scout from Manila visited the village. She was there for another project entirely, documenting life in remote coastal communities, but the sound of a voice drifting from a half-lit alleyway stopped her in her tracks. It was soft at first, hesitant even, but then it grew, rich and full, a velvet river flowing through the evening air. She followed it, heart pounding, until she found Mateo, barefoot, tangled in fishing nets, singing as though the ocean itself listened. She couldn't believe it. Who are you?" she whispered, careful not to startle him. Mateo froze, the song dying on his lips. He was embarrassed, shy, unpracticed in the ways of outsiders. I'm just me," he stammered. She smiled. "No, you're more than just you. You need to come with me. I know a stage, a place, where the world needs to hear this." Mateo laughed, shaking his head. "A stage? I have a stage right here. And the world doesn't care about fishermen singing to the moon." But she persisted. She saw what the villagers already knew but he had buried under nets and hard labor. Mateo's voice was a miracle. It had the power to make people feel deeply, to open wounds and heal them at the same time, to stir the kind of awe that made grown men weep. Weeks later, he found himself standing in the bright lights of a television studio in Manila. The roar of the audience was unlike anything he had ever experienced. By day, he wrestled the ocean. Now, he was wrestling fear, nerves, and the weight of opportunity. He looked at the judges. Faces known around the world, eyes sharp and discerning. They were waiting for someone extraordinary. He was a fisherman. Extraordinary was not part of his vocabulary. The first notes trembled. His hands, calloused from ropes and nets, shook. Slightly, he closed his eyes and pictured the waves, the horizon, the quiet streets of his village at dusk. The memory of his mother's words steadied him. Never hide it. And then, the sound emerged. It started soft, delicate, like the gentle lapping of water on sand. Then it grew, expanding in richness and depth, each note a perfect brushstroke of emotion. It was a voice that carried the weight of years, the salt of the sea, the struggles and dreams of a humble life lived fully. The audience leaned in. The judges exchanged glances, trying to maintain composure. But the magic was unstoppable. Mateo sang not for fame, not for approval, but because he could not help it. Singing was as natural as breathing. By the time he reached the chorus, the room was silent except for his voice. It wrapped around everyone, pulling memories, joys, and regrets from the corners of their hearts. One judge, a man known for his stoicism, wiped tears from his eyes. Another clutched the armrest, unable to breathe, mesmerized. And Mateo, the fisherman, felt a strange buoyancy, as if the sea itself had lifted him and carried him across the stage. When the last note faded, there was a beat of silence, an almost sacred pause where the world collectively held its breath. And then the applause erupted, thunderous and unending. Mateo opened his eyes, stunned. People were on their feet, cheering, crying, clapping. He couldn't remember ever feeling so small and so immense at the same time. He had cast nets for fish his whole life, but tonight, he had cast something far greater. A spell, a miracle, a gift that touched every soul in the room. He received the golden buzzer, an honor reserved for performances that leave an indelible mark. The judges' faces shone with awe and admiration. He smiled awkwardly, still catching his breath, his hands still rough and calloused, his clothes still carrying the faint scent of the sea. But inside, he felt like he was flying. Back in his village, the news spread like wildfire. People gathered around old radios and new smartphones, listening to clips of the performance. Mateo's mother cried, her hands trembling, as neighbors cheered him on. The fisherman who had sung under the moon, hidden in shadows, was now a beacon to the world. He had not changed. He was still Mateo Cruz, still the boy who had dreamed of something larger than the waves. But the world had changed its perception. And perhaps, just perhaps, he had changed too. The journey ahead was uncertain. There would be travel, rehearsals, interviews, and endless scrutiny. But Mateo welcomed it. Every new note he sang, every new audience he touched, was a tribute to his roots, to the ocean, to the simple life he had loved and lived. He would never forget where he came from. He would never forget the quiet nights, the lull of the waves, and the nets that tangled under his hands. Because they had shaped him. They had shaped the voice that could now, quite literally, shake the world. And so, Mateo continued. His days were still spent casting nets, still battling the tides, still feeling the sun burn his back. But his nights, his nights were no longer quiet. They were filled with music, applause, and the knowledge that a humble fisherman could do what many dreamers only hope for. Touch the hearts of millions, not with wealth or fame, but with something far rarer, a voice pure, untrained, and utterly miraculous. He cast nets by day, and by night, he cast spells. The world had witnessed a miracle, but in Mateo's heart, it was simply life as it had always been, hard, beautiful, relentless, and full of unexpected magic. And every time he sang, he remembered the lesson of the tides, patience, resilience, and the truth that even the smallest voice, when used with love and courage, could echo across oceans and hearts alike.